I'm gonna wait for, see if Dr. Young is gonna come up.
Yeah, she's gonna come on.
Okay, let's wait for Dr. Young then.
Okay. Is there, an agenda for this meeting?
Yes, ma'am. There is an agenda for the meeting.
Okay.
Mr. Lawyer, does your Jasper County work? It works, yours works.
So, maybe they didn't get the emails on this right either about.
So what she got is, he's on the phone, Hazel did not get it. So she changed the email.
with our finances. So for instance, we had our own procurement policy before that, and as Ms. Crosby remembers, it wasn't the best. No, just joking aside. But in all seriousness, we've taken on their bylaws and so forth, and their financial fundamental rules and so forth, and it's helped us with those, with the audits that have been really clean lately. So recruiting was something people asked about, and I just did a rough outline. In September, October, elementary and middle schools come to ACE and tour ACE. We do a sign up, we send it out to all the elementary schools and all the middle schools, and they can sign up, and we have them in here, and they go from program to program, and our students do little presentations for them, and they get to go into the classrooms, ask questions and so forth. And with that, we also do outreach to them. A lot of times they have career days at their school, and we'll send 2 or 3 programs. This may be a nail tech, they'll bring a hand that they can show and they work on, or they'll bring a mannequin head for barbering. So we go to the schools as well to really start getting ACE into the heads of students who are in the elementary and the middle school. Then in November, I visit each school with my counselor, and we bring students who are from that feeder school. So for instance, if we go to Bluffton High School, we bring students from Bluffton. If we go to Ridgeland, we bring students who are from Ridgeland. We get up, we present briefly, and we let the students talk about ACE to their peers. At the end of that meeting, we hand out an interest form, and we tell the students, this isn't a commitment, this is just for us to get you more information. They fill out the interest form, they give us their first and second choice, and we take that back, okay? Once we finish with all the schools, we take that data, we email the parents and let them know that their student was interested in ACE, and we email the feeder school counselors. So they get the information from us as they start to think about their students' IGPs that are gonna take place in the spring. In February, each high school signs up and brings a bus of students over to ACE. We try to target those students who are interested in ACE or have already applied to ACE at that time, okay? So they get to come over, they get to meet with their program, they get to see other programs as well, and they get to actually step foot on campus before they're accepted, okay? In March is a lot of times when the students start their 10th grade IGP meetings with their counselors. We send reminder emails out again to the parents and the counselors, and then we start to get applications, the majority of our applications. We probably will start getting applications next month for next year, but that's when we begin to really get them coming in at a larger scale because they're having that time with their counselors where their counselors help them fill that out. And then in April, we review the applications and we reach out to students, we reach out back to the schools, and what we try to do is communicate. And the whole point of this is that communication between us, the student, and us in the feeder school and the counselors. For example, I'll email principals of the high school saying, hey, you have X amount of seats in each of these programs, and my counselor will do the same with each of the counseling teams at their respective schools. So we're always trying to do outreach all the way up until the students start either in the fall or in the spring. Most of ours start in the spring, but we sometimes have openings for our 1 semester programs in the fall, and we keep that going. What we end up doing, if you want to go to the next slide, is looking at how many sophomores are in each program, how many applications have been submitted, and the percentage of sophomores that apply. Okay, so we track this data. We track the data, and I didn't include it on here. We track everything from how many interest forms were from each school, how many percentages of interest form students that applied. So we really dig deep with our data to make sure we're targeting the students that are interested in ACE and that we're communicating our opportunity to each of the feeder school students. So if you look at this, this is the amount of applications by feeder school.
Can we spend a little time on this, because I think this is where a lot of the questions came in, especially from Mrs. Hazel. She had some questions about the number of applications as opposed to the number of students being represented on campus.
Well, now, my understanding from the last board meeting that we had, we were concerned about Jasper's participating in their 1/3 operational budget. I feel that, and the records indicate that Jasper is well below 1/3 participation over there at ACE. That's my number one concern. And that's a Jasper problem, I believe. It starts with Jasper. The solutions to that particular problem, it begins with Jasper. However, ACE must be involved. And we have been working with Dr. Hickson, and we had a meeting that was scheduled, but something came up and it was abruptly postponed. And I understand we're running a school system, I understand what that's like. But there, and you giving us all this information, which is great, and you have given us this information before, and I fully understand this information. My concern is that we must increase Jasper's participation at ACE based on the amount of money Jasper is spending at ACE. That's just my concern. And the work must begin with Jasper. And I believe, if I remember correctly, because it's something else when you are suddenly called this morning and you are asked to join a meeting. So I'm trying to recollect a lot of things here, but my memory from the last meeting is that we were going to start the process of figuring out how to increase Jasper's enrollment at ACE based on the funding that Jasper is sending over at ACE. And as I just said, that work begins with Jasper, but of course ACE needs to be involved in that as well.
Agreed.
That's just my concern. How do we rectify this problem? And if the applications numbers are low, that's, again, it goes back to Jasper. We gotta get these applications, we gotta get these numbers up. So that is my concern there. Because I know what you're producing over there at ACE, and Jasper is missing out on a lot of what's going on over there. That's all it is with me. The programs, I understand all of that. My major concern right now, we gotta do what we can for Jasper to get what they should be getting. And it begins with Jasper.
Ms. Hayes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is Dr. Hickson. Since that last board meeting, I met with the team to talk about the concerns, which are concerns that I had shared earlier at community meetings. But one of the things that we have done, because you are correct, it's a Jasper problem. Mr. Mike also sent me emails where he showed me the evidence where he had been sending emails to principals, and a lot of times not even getting a response. So you are correct, it is a Jasper problem. And what I've done to correct the problem, I have identified one of the directors who's responsible now for collaborating and working directly with BJACE, as well as with the two principals, so that she's getting the information, and now she's working with the schools and the counselors. And then she's also working directly with Mike and his team. So already we put this in action maybe 3 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, right after the board meeting. And they can tell you that we have already added some students just by putting a direct person in place And Dr. Murphy is the person that has been designated, Ms. Dr. Paula Murphy, who currently is over the dual enrollment with TCL and has done an excellent job. So I've added BJACE to her case, and I can assure you, you'll start to see a difference.
Okay, that sounds great. That sounds great. And, information is just, you just gotta have that information. So I appreciate that. So that's good news to hear this morning. I appreciate that, Dr. Lisa.
You're welcome.
This next slide is the fall enrollment, okay? So right now, this is the students who are returning, who we have as returning to us next semester. So these numbers in each program are the same as this current semester, with the exception of culinary arts, EMS, and marine technology. And marine technology is not running now because we don't have a teacher, but we do plan on running it as a fall-only, one-time, one-semester program. So we've communicated that to all our stakeholders, the principals and the counselors, because this is a great opportunity that seniors have to come here and take a technical class that they normally don't get. And it's like I said, it's a one-time only offering because when the spring begins, they go back to the 2 semesters. So we've been working on communicating these openings, but you can already see culinary is pretty close to full in both districts. EMS is almost full in both districts, and marine has some openings that we're really trying to get some seniors over here and some juniors who are interested and may not be able to commit to the 2 semesters because of they're behind a little bit, but this opens the door for some of those students to come over and learn a program and get certified.
Okay, so we're looking at total number of seats,
Mm-hmm.
and this is the percentage of seats that Jasper takes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a waiting list in any of these?
Well, for the fall, we don't. For the spring, I'm going to show that slide next. We do, because this is, like I said, these are the kids that are on campus now. So the waiting list would have been from really last year for this cohort. And you're going to see there's an exception because right now we're changing our cosmetology and barbering. They're going from the 2.5 semesters, which they were, down to 2. So next semester, we're gonna be able to take additional students in those programs because we've changed the format. So you'll see the numbers in those 2 go up, which will impact the overall number of students we can have
Say
on
that one more
campus.
time. I missed that part.
No, that's okay. We have, right now, our culinary arts, our cosmetology and barbering students
Okay.
come here for 2.5 semesters because they need to get 1,000 hours on the floor to be eligible to test for the state exam. That's a state requirement.
Right.
So they would come here and they would take their schedule that you saw. They would take Cosmo 1, Cosmo 2 in English, Cosmo 3 in English, and then they would come back. They're on campus now for half day, and they take Cosmo 4 and test.
They're taking Cosmo 1 and Cosmo 2 at the same time?
Yes, but it was like I explained earlier. They finish Cosmo 1 and do Cosmo 2.
Right.
Then they take Cosmo 3,
Okay.
senior year, first semester, and then they're back for half day to get their hours.
Okay.
What we decided to do was, this was difficult for those students because it's taken them away from their feeder school for a little bit more. So we're gonna condense that program into 2 semesters and not have them take English here. So they're here all day and it's really cosmetology focused. So they don't have to clock out when they go to English and clock back in. Because when they enter these classrooms, they have to put their thumb on there and they get clocked in and clocked out. And every month we report their hours to the LLR, which is the state governing association for barbers, cosmetologists, and a number of other professional organizations in the state. So we're condensing that, but it gives us an opportunity to add more students. And it actually increased our time that we have with the students with taking away the English by about 100 hours, I would say 70 hours. So it's actually increasing their opportunity to get time.
So they're not taking the English here, they'll be taking it back.
Yes, they're taking it there. Mm-hmm.
Can I just also add, because of that, and because of just trying to make sure students are prepared and ready, to come in their junior year. We also talked about front loading their high school requirements. And if you front load their high school requirements and they have most of those high school required courses completed, now that frees up that time where they can participate in more career courses.
In the longer career courses.
Yes.
And we do, when we go to, and I should maybe go back, when we go recruit, we meet with the counseling teams at each school when we're in there in the fall, and we sit down with that team and explain any changes that are a year or two away. We get their feedback, and we help mold it so it works a little bit better for everybody in all fronts. We actually used to have the high school tours in the fall and then visit them in the spring, and based on their feedback, we flipped that, which made more logical sense. So we're trying to always get that to improve and increase our usefulness, not only to students, but to the counselors, because the better they understand what we do, the more willing and they're gonna be to send their students over to us.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir?
65% Beaufort County,
Mm-hmm.
35% Jasper County, so you're meeting the 1/3, 2/3,
These are the allotted numbers that we're giving. These are the enrollment numbers.
okay?
Now, when I added up,
There's a difference.
if you go to the spring, you'll see the number went up, right? We can now take 36 cosmetology students. We can take 24 barbering students. When I added up the total seats, for instance, in Jasper, okay? For us to meet that quota in Jasper, that would be 42 or 43% of 11th and 12th grade students that come to ACE. And that's a large number of students to be sending to a career center. It's not impossible, but it's something that needs to be thought about and discussed, because having 42% of your students here, that's gonna have a huge impact on the feeder school scheduling, their staffing, and things like that. So those are
That's why
just,
we need a front load.
yes. And 42% of Beaufort's kids in the same grade would be 702 kids. So I was just playing with numbers out of curiosity. So just to give you an idea of like the scope of that.
And I think just here, where, again, back to Ms. Hazel's question of us being at the 1/3 mark,
Mhm.
if that number is 75 students, but we only have 47.
Yes.
So that's the number that she was questioning as to how we can
I
increase
get
that
that.
number.
And this number, when I sent it out to you guys last week, was 36, 35 or 34, something to that ilk. And what Dr. Murphy did, what Dr. Murphy did was, we gave her the list of students, for instance, who we had questions on. Some of the students that we get applications for, we have to eliminate right away. For instance, we'll get a senior who's interested in a 2-semester program that starts junior year. We can't take that student. What we do is go back and say, hey, these are offerings here. Or we'll get a student who has 3 credits junior year. Well, we can't take a student who has 3 credits junior year because they won't graduate, So we go back to that. Summer documentation questions in Cosmo and barbering, in some other courses where they have to have certain documents to be eligible to test, like social security card. So when we see they're born outside the US, we'll have Dr. Murphy have a conversation with those kids and let them understand that you're gonna put in a lot of time, but you might not be eligible to test at the end with accordance to the state guidelines. So we want that to be communicated. Sometimes we have a kid who's been suspended for discipline for a number of times for like insubordination, where we're asking them to go into classrooms with tools where you're gonna have a teacher in the classroom working with a kid while students are outside unsupervised in a shed, and some students are on a skill saw in the shop, right? We have to make sure that we're putting kids in position to succeed, but we also have to protect the whole classroom of students as well as staff in those classrooms. So she usually gets us the information, and that was a big help for us. And it also, for those students who couldn't qualify, they came back with second choices, so we still got to place them. So having that liaison made a huge difference in getting us the answers we needed in a timely manner. Now, she was now going back and looking at some of the seats like auto collision 3. She was going back to the counselors, the students, and the principals with these open seats here.
Yeah.
And right now, we just let the counselors know who's been accepted so they can work on their master schedule and their staffing. And we're starting, hopefully by the weekend, to contact the students so they can plan accordingly, that they'll be coming here either in the fall for culinary or EMS, or most likely in the spring for a program. So we're in that communication phase. Once that goes out, we're gonna revisit all of these numbers and begin contacting not only Dr. Young, but the principals again from both districts and the counselors saying, hey, we got openings over here. If this is something you have a student that you're thinking about, there's a possibility.
So you have capacity. You have capacity for more students in for both Beaufort and for,
We have some, and there's some waiting list that we're working on.
there's some waiting, and what programs have waiting lists?
Well, Cosmo, we have one seat, but we have a number of applicants. We're just gonna do a lottery on that. We wanna make sure we're equitable. I think auto, nursing certainly did, health science did this year. We had a waiting list in Jasper for health science too, actually, now that I think about it. We had about 2 students who were trying to figure out, in auto tech. So those were the 3, auto tech, Cosmo, and health science. In the past, we've had it for barbering, but now that we've expanded it, it's not the same demand for some odd reason this year.
Now, we've got May River has an expansion in their CTE enrollment, so is that going to give more capacity to you for the welding program, for example?
Most of our kids that are from or students that come to ACE from May River are coming for other programs because they're being scheduled in those programs there. There is sometimes an exception when a student maybe beginning a junior year into sophomore year says, hey, I want to be a welder or I want to go into auto, and they haven't been enrolled and they don't have enough time in their schedule to do it, so they may come here for that. But that's very few and far between, maybe one every few years.
Mike, man, I mean, there's an example there. If you look at welding, Beaufort is allotted 11 seats. Beaufort has 11 students projected for those seats, right?
Yes.
So even with the welding programs we have, right, that we don't have a lot of overlap with ACE, but in a few places we do have some overlap, but those are like high demand places of student interest, right? So we can not only fill ours, but we can fill the ones we're allotted here.
But we have 2 more CTE buildings under construction, or about to go into construction.
Yeah, high school.
High school.
Yeah, which would be, it's not gonna be like this, it's gonna be limited.
Right, so that's going to take some of the students that would otherwise come here would be able to stay at Beaufort High and Bluffton High,
Depending on the programs.
or but other programs.
Yeah.
That was gonna be my next question. Have you identified which programs specifically are gonna be at those campuses?
We have identified programs. We intentionally do very little overlap. So that the option is here.
Right.
Where we have overlap is in programs that would be high demand, so that we could fill.
So that if it's filled on your campus, then they can ship.
Yeah,
Or vice versa.
right. We don't want to duplicate all the programs that are here because that doesn't make sense, right? For us, you know. So we're intentionally only duplicating programs that there's a lot of student interest, so that we can meet as much of that student interest in one way or another at the school or here, to the extent possible.
I was gonna say, there's a page that I wanna get to. I have some questions, but I wanna let them get to it because I think that some of the questions that we're asking, I think it comes to fruition on the last page in terms of next steps. So I wanted to, if we could, maybe could we let him finish this? We could let him finish this presentation, and so that we can go in terms of having the dialogue that we're having right now, because I think that I would like to see what his movement is and what his next steps are in terms of moving forward and how this whole puzzle comes together. And these are valid questions, but I think it seems like I think that he's going to bring some of our questions out and answer in his last presentation. So maybe we can start the presentation and then kind of take the questions there.
Right there.
Perfect. So again, we're completing the acceptances at this moment. We're beginning to notify the students. The counselors have been notified. okay? We're sharing, after that, we're gonna share the remaining vacant seat information, once we get that information out. So that counselors and we're gonna actually thinking about going back and looking at the interest forms one more time in those specific programs that have openings, contacting those students and counselors, so it's really targeted. We're gonna then finalize enrollment for the year. Now, there's always gonna be students who are coming and going. What ends up happening over the summer is our enrollment numbers, seats slowly open. Either students move or students fail their classes and are ineligible to come. Okay, so when we look at their GPAs, we kind of identify these kids right off the bat. Some of them are right walking that tightrope, but we give them the benefit of the doubt, hoping that motivates them to pass their classes because they want to come here. At that point, we start to look at the bigger picture. Okay, what's openings? Is there a waiting list? We come back in the fall, and then we try to fill the whole school, regardless of, like, so for instance, if we have like health science, and I told you there's a Jasper health science opening, and there's a seat, we'll move that kid in, even if it's a Beaufort seat, vice versa, if it's a Jasper seat, because by that time, we want to get the students in, and we want to let the students know. What I don't want to do ever happen is have a vacant seat sit there while there are kids in either district wanting that program, because that's malpractice. That's really all I have.
So my question is, I looked through, as I looked through the presentation.
I have to tell you something though, Mr. Smith, that you're gonna appreciate, that Ms. Pongello has been teasing me. I put page numbers on here, but they're so small with the purple background that you cannot see.
Oh my God.
So, we did.
It is there.
Do you see it? We did remember the page numbers, and I wanna say that because she was giving me grief and I printed them all, and she said,
Really?
well, we have to redo them. I said, I can't keep wasting this color printer on my bookkeeper's gonna kill me. But we did remember that.
I appreciate that. When,
It's right there.
I look at the number of seats and the different things, that y'all have. I would also like to, I like to ask also, and then I missed it, I would like to know how many seats or students that what's the capacity of this building in terms of total program? Should we be slated for?
If you go to the spring, so I would say the 215 would be the capacity, give or take, 1 or 2 students.
So
So that's how many can be on campus at one time with every program full.
it's 215.
Yes, that's gonna be primarily for the spring when the 2 teachers are not splitting kids, when the Cosmo and Barbering move on to their new format. So this will be the capacity we will have as of January 27th.
And that's with every slot filled total. Okay, now, if I could, I want to go back to something that was said earlier by one of my colleagues. My question to you is, you told us about part of the recruiting process, but my question is, what's the intake process?
When we accept them,
Totally, how do you decide who you're going to accept? What is that process?
what we do is in our program of studies and in our handbook, it says we look at academics, discipline, and attendance, okay? So, Mr. Melton gets their application, and he then divides Beaufort and Jasper, okay? At that point, he'll have a column with all the students' GPAs, and he'll highlight them all, and he'll say, what is the average? So for instance, the average in Beaufort, and I remember this because you had texted it to me, I was out, was 3.3 GPA for all of our Beaufort applicants. So what we'll say is, okay, anyone from a 2.8 or 2.7 or above, we mark as green, okay? Then we'll take the average of the remaining students, and we'll divide that in half, and there's a yellow and a red. And what we try to do is then look, okay, who has all the greens, right? Who has attendance, discipline, no discipline, and in decent academics. We try to give them a green column. Then we go back and look at the reasons why each student has a variety of issues. You know, you don't want to punish a kid who has a lot of absences when in fact they were out on medical, right? So we make sure we take that into account. And a lot of times, probably the least amount we hold is discipline, because discipline is kind of subjective sometimes, right? Some schools may be focusing on one area that some aren't, but one of the things we notice is a lot of our kids don't have discipline. What we notice is you either have a few or none, right? So it hasn't really been that big of an issue. So when we have the 3 greens, we look at how many of those kids are, and then how many are with, you know, 1 yellow, 2 yellows, and we kind of go down that list, trying to place them all. Then, what we started to do this year that we hadn't done in the past was we began to look at east and north and south of the Broad, because when we were doing a random lottery, so for instance, for cosmetology, we had, for Beaufort specifically, a handful of applicants. Just, I don't even know the number off the top of my head.
71.
71 applicants, right? So say 50 of them were all green. When we put them in a lottery, because the schools on south of the Broad are so bigger, what we realized was it kept coming out Beaufort and Hilton Head, and Bluffton and Hilton Head seem to always have the most. So what we tried to do is almost break that down a little bit and make sure that there were representation from each school under that, so we were spread a little bit more evenly in the Beaufort side. While Jasper, it ends up spreading evenly just naturally. So that's really the process we use. At that point, we start what Mr. Melton is doing now. He contacts the counselors, we send letters home to the parents and the students, and then we do our open house in the fall. But when we do our Friends and Family Day, which is in November, I don't know if you remember that from back when, we invite those students and their parents in. We're adding a few more steps for barbering and cosmetology this year, where we're gonna do it early September online orientation because of the rigor in those classes and the fact that they need to get their documents and stuff in for their licenses before they even step on campus. Because the barbering students can have their permits before they come here, and that's gonna help them get their hours. Yes, sir?
You go ahead, I can come back.
Okay. You mentioned Beaufort's GPA, the average that you're looking at is 3.3.
Yeah.
And what is that for Jasper?
Do you remember what that was? It was over 3.
It was over, I think it was 3.1,
Yes.
3.1?
right,
Yeah.
right at 3.0, yeah.
Okay. And then my second question, you mentioned earlier that there were some students who might not be born in this country who didn't have social security numbers. And some of them may choose to go through the courses but can't get certified or licensed at the end. What's the step for them if something can be implemented so that they can get that by the end of the term?
That's out of our hands.
Yeah.
One of the most difficult things, and we had a student that snuck through this year, it was a Beaufort student who didn't have that. And what's happened, and I've seen this happen in the past too, is this whole semester is about preparing for the test. The student becomes disengaged, upset, and the attendance drops. Because everybody's working towards this one goal, and that student is still learning, but if everything's preparing for the test and you can't test, it wasn't something that I would really ever try to do after I've seen it over the past few years of what happens. You know, we've had kids that stop coming. So it isn't really ideal for those students because they feel like they're not part of the team because everybody's working towards something.
Towards the test, as opposed to, you said they're working toward the test?
The test is the cosmetology or barbering license test, that's the state. So we don't, the state has those conditions in place. I know that it's different in every state, and there's some reciprocity amongst state lines, so they are welcome to look, but we can't really advise them beyond letting them know the information that's ahead of them. Okay, if you come here, you'll have a great education, you'll learn this, but at the end of this, you might not be eligible to test, and if you go to test in another state, they may not accept your hours that you put in here. So, you know, I know that's an issue, not only at a school level, but at a state level with people coming into our state who have that background in other states or never other countries wanting to take those tests and continue their profession.
It's the same issue with the dual enrollment program at the TCL or at University or USCB, right? I mean, if they won't even really let them in the door.
And when they do, we have to pay out of district or out of state tuition.
And because those students, we know those students are interested in coming to ACE, if we find out that they won't be able to get their license at the end, we will always let them know what programs have openings. That, you know, they would be able to take the licensure test in. So, for instance, I know there were 2 this week, Jasper students this week, that were not gonna be able to get their license, and we switched them over to culinary, so that they are now enrolled to come for culinary next school year. So they're still coming here, just not for their first choice program. Yeah.
And there was one student actually who was pointing out, who did have the documentation, that Dr. Murphy found out, that got moved to cosmetology.
Yes.
I find that interesting because I go to my last barber shop, almost every barber was not born in the country,
Well,
but they're great barbers, right? But they have licenses.
they might
I
have
don't know
the
how to
documentation, but there's also, and I learned this from being here, there's also kind of an underground business in those fields, because people in their communities are gonna go to them, whether they have the license or not, you know, so. Yes, sir.
So, as you underlined your process,
Mhm.
I do take a issue with the process, and here's why. How many sped students you have that are here right now at this point?
Well, traditionally, and I don't have the number up, we've had 12%, which is about the average in every school. So it just works out that we have the same amount as school, because it's a random sample. And we've had self-contained students on campus before. To be honest with you, probably out of the last 3 years, 2 years, we've had self-contained English for 2 semesters. So we bring in all students.
I hear that, but I find it hard to process when you said the average student had the GPA of, what was it,
3.3 and 3.
Yeah, 3.3 and 3.1. Let me tell you something. I was a student who myself had an IEP back in the day. Listen, having a 3 anything was not where you saw me at. So I also possibly wanted to come ACE. I talked to students in the community who said they can't get an ACE, and that's why I asked what the process is, because if you have to have a 3 or you have to have a green to get here, hell, if you have a 1.5, you may be that student who who may need a trade, and school may not be for you. Then the process we have may be flawed because they can't get in, because they may not stand a chance of getting that green. So, which makes me think that maybe we should go back to the drawing board, because that process may be too rigorous to get some of the students that who do need it, because these students who do have these 3.4s, 3.1 GPAs, they can survive in any climate. These are I won't say universal students, but these students can survive in possibly any climate. So that is that is one issue that concerns me. Before you, let me jump to one other thing real quick. I just wanted to address one other thing before you leave. So that's one thing. But also in terms of listening to my colleagues talk earlier about it being a Jasper problem in terms of students coming over here. I think it is a everyone problem, and here why I'm saying that is because it's great for Jasper County to bring students, but it also comes to the culture and the climate, because we don't know in the past. I remember when I was here the first time, there was a question upon how the students were getting in, with how the students intake was going, but also wherever ACE was taking more students on in different areas, and we're taking on Beaufort students and some of the Jasper County students not qualifying. But my point is this, just to bring it, just to not point any fingers. I think it takes us having a team effort, and also communicating in terms of recruiting, and as well as say, hey, this is what slots we have open, and this is what slots that y'all qualifying. I don't think it's just a Jasper problem. I think it's a team problem, and to say that, to say that, I think it's kind of rigorous, because one time they were saying that it was a Beaufort problem too. They were saying that the guys' houses in Beaufort wasn't sending the students, and then when we found out, we started really digging in. It was more of a communication part as a whole on the team. And at the end of the day, is the people in this building, it's their job to fill these slots. Versus a Beaufort High School, a Battery High School, the people in the surrounding area, those kids are gonna either they're gonna go to those schools or they're gonna go to private schools. But this school have, and particularly have slots that has to be filled, and if this building is not filled, then no one here has jobs. So therefore, I think it is more incumbent on the institution to fill the slots and tell Beaufort County, this is what we need from you. Jasper County, this is what we need from you. We need you to be helping us recruiting and having fairs to say, hey, look here, now we have everything. We have all these spots, or we have a couple of slots available, or what other program can we house there? So I think it's more of a everyone's problem versus just a Jasper problem, because I think there's a host of things that are going on here that upon working together we can solve. So I just don't want to say that it's just a Jasper problem where I think there's a team issue here that we all need to work together as well in terms of guidance, in terms of administration, in terms of the superintendent and board members. Because board members, when we go out and talk, we can also be promoting the place as well and saying, hey, we have ACE and we have these programs and we're looking to put more programs here. So I just want to put that out there before you know, I just want to that in the head.
I'm not leaving.
Thank you, Dr. Mike. As always, together we get more done. So we
Yes,
appreciate
ma'am.
that. And we'll continue to work up together. Thank
Hi
you.
there, doctor.
Thank you. Sorry I have to leave early.
No problem. I think she had something she wants to
Yeah.
say.
I want to say something that, we're grateful and we're thankful for Dr. Mike with your, report. And as we were sitting here making some notes and listening to you, do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Right.
Okay, to know that you do have, an operation of recruiting students, that's very important. And sending your recruiting team to these schools to, try to look for students that is qualified to come into your program. That is a plus, to all of us. And to Dr. Nicholson, we want to thank you for what you have put in place already for the counselors and those persons that you have contributed to go and talk to help encourage the students. And I believe I think we're moving forward, and it's we come to look at the GPA. I believe that when they get to these programs and working with the school, they will be qualified to get in. But we must remember, everybody is not on the same level. So if you expected a 3.1, a 3.2, what will we do for the person or the child that cannot comply to get to that 3.1? I think there should be like a backup, and I'm probably sure that you will have one for that situation. But I'm grateful for what I hear here about the recruiting for students is very important. And with the school operating and working with ACE, I believe that we will have more qualified students to come in to do what they desire to do to make their future brighter, because it's just been a breakdown in the system all the way around. But I believe now that we are getting it together, reforming it, and putting people in place to encourage these students and watch over their grades, that when they get to ACE, they will be qualified. And thank you very much for all the information that you have given unto us. And especially when I heard you say there will be representatives from ACE going to these schools a certain time of the year, recruiting students. Thank you much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and let me add, I would like to add to that. I haven't had raised a while, but I don't think anybody's looking at that. But yeah, Mr. Smith, I appreciate your comments, because after coming to board meetings and listening at these reports, I realized that Jasper definitely had a problem here. And then you notice a problem, then you must bring that problem to the forefront. And I think that is the reason for this meeting this morning, it definitely takes this board, it takes everybody on this board to rectify this problem. And I believe with this meeting this morning, we're definitely headed in the right direction to get it taken care of. I've been dealing with ACE a long time, and it's been a great experience. But I've been retired now, going on 6 years, so I haven't been involved in anything much in the last 6 years. But I can recall, my first encounter with ACE was back in 1981. Maybe it was 1980, because our first daughter was born in 77. So she attended daycare at ACE. 2 of our children attended daycare at ACE.
Wow.
Because ACE had a daycare center, because they were teaching early childhood education. And there was a daycare center on campus, and it was just awesome. It was just awesome. You made sure you notified them in January that your child will be returning, because there was a waiting list. That is my first introduction to ACE. Then after I transferred over to the county, then I became a career counselor and on and on and on. But working with ACE and sending students to ACE, that was something that I started with middle school students. Then went down to elementary students and elementary parents, talking about an alternative to college. Kids who were not interested in the traditional 4-year college. There was ACE to introduce your child to careers when your child finished high school. College is too expensive to enroll in to decide what you want to do. You need to know what you're going to do when you got to college. So ACE was an outlet for that. And our students did very well. I can remember as many as 90 students going to ACE. Because at that time, Dr. LaVecchio, I don't know if you know, but records would indicate ACE had nearly 300 kids.
Yo, they did the half day, they did half days.
Half days.
Huh?
They did half days. That was during the time when they did half days.
Yeah. And Jasper, we had nearly 90 kids participating. I remember graduation and putting the program together with the completers. It just brought joy to my heart for the number of kids who were graduating as completers. Maybe a board meeting or 2 ago, I did hear something about the GPA of your students averaging 3.0. That kind of it raised an eyebrow with me as well, because I knew of many students where the traditional classroom just didn't work. It just didn't work. And those were kids that would pull aside, and behavior was a problem for them because they just didn't fit in. So we offered them opportunities that were available at ACE. Got those students in ACE, their life made a 180-degree turn. They were not 3.0 students. Some of them were kids who helped their dad or their uncle, who was a tree shade mechanic. That was the term we used back then. Maybe they still have tree shade mechanics.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
And they loved working on cars. And ACE had programs, and those kids went over there and did well. I go now to get my car service down the road there at Lexus, and you work with a kid 25 or 30 years ago, I'm sitting in their waiting room or their customer room area, and I'm looking at these accolades on the wall. I may not remember a face, because faces change through the years, but your name doesn't change. I saw this name on the board. I said to myself, I know him. And when my car was ready, I asked for that name. And that young man came up and he said, Miss Hazel. I said, yes, I saw your name on the wall and I knew it would be you. And that was a kid who was just your average Joe, just traditional classroom just didn't work for him. And he's one of the master mechanics over there at the Lexus dealership, right down from ACE. So we have to include all of these children, and I just don't want that 3.0 GPA to be a major determining factor for these children where the traditional setting just doesn't work. To sit in that classroom, in a desk, sitting in a row, looking at that whiteboard, listening to the teacher, they need to be using their hands, their minds will get going. So I just want to make sure that we are considering other factors than GPA. We need to know these kids' interest level, and all of that takes place at the school level to determine where you may want to go to get them over there at ACE. They may come to you in one program, and that has happened many times. I'm sure it's still happening. They come to you for one program, and then after a week or two, they have transferred to another program because they have been exposed. So I just want to make sure that we're doing our work so the students can do their work.
Can I make a comment? Ms. Hazel and Will, I never thought about what you just mentioned, but when I go to Right Choices and I talk to kids in Right Choices, I see kids in Right Choices that have discipline issues, and that's why they're in Right Choices. And I said, these are kids that just can't sit still in a seat. And you put them in something where they're working with their hands and doing something rather than sitting there listening to somebody talk to them. They're going to do well. And I understand the discipline issues that you've got to have because you have to have more supervision, and I'm not saying that you should be have to take care of kids that just aren't ready to work. And I see these same kids at adult graduation. When they graduate there, I said, there's a kid that just mind just wasn't wired yet when they were in school. And now look at them, and maybe they should have been in these programs here. And maybe we should have an adult education part that fills some of these seats. But that's a real, and I'm shocked at the 3.1.
Can I?
I didn't have a 3.1 high school graduation myself. When I graduated, I was running about 2.5, 2.7.
Colonel, I just want to clarify something to the entire board. These are the averages of our applicants. There are kids that were accepted that have under 2.0 GPAs. There are kids that have been accepted that have been at alternative schools for violent offenses. Okay, we accepted 90% of our Jasper applicants, and the ones that weren't accepted were because they were not the right grade level. They shouldn't have had an application come over, and the two that are on a waiting list for health science. So by no means, I think this kind of conversation took a turn here. Are we not taking, our community doesn't allow us to be that picky. Okay, we're not an honors school. We're a career center, right? We take students from every pathway, every demographic, et cetera. It's kind of a melting pot, and I take pride in that. So I don't want people thinking that this is an honors school. I'm just reporting data. The students that applied, those are their GPAs, and they're probably very similar to the students that applied last year and the year before. We're not going out to these recruiting trips and saying, guess what, kids? You don't have a 3.0, don't even bother. These are the kids who are interested. And I think it's more of a testament to the changing viewpoints of CTE education in this country, in this community, that more kids who used to go to college are now interested in CTE. And I think it's really a testament to how our students, more than any.
And I still will say, I still have a hard stand, because when your average comes out to 3.1, that still does not speak to me to the testament of some of the students who are still, when I talk to students who are in the community who can't get into ACE, or students who tell me they're trying to get into ACE, these are students who don't have that 3.1. So that's why I asked, my first question was, what was your process? Understanding your process helps me understand why some of these kids possibly cannot get an ACE. Because I know personally where they are and what grades they're making. So to me, again, I still stand on what I say. I think that your process may need to be tweaked, and also how you intake students in, because like it was said, every student is not your perfect student. That's why I asked you, I think actually last week, how many students do you have out here with IEPs or disabilities? Because those are students, as we've all implied, that may be students who can't sit in classes and who have those situations. And I remember too, as a kid, the only way how I was able at one time to possibly get a chance to come to ACE is because I was a very vocal student, and they told me to it at one time, no, you cannot come because basically because I didn't have the GPA, because I didn't have some of my core classes. So I think it comes to some recreating, to being able to offer some students. And then you said y'all are teaching English or something. I hear different that English and that math. I may have not had that, so therefore, in order to graduate, ACE was not an option. So I think all those are conversations to have in terms of moving forward. But I still stand on what I said. Having an average as a place to offer these certified positions. As of even yesterday, we were talking. I was at the gym talking yesterday in terms of even plumber. We were laughing and joking, and the plumbers I was working out yesterday at the gym. There were about four people who were together with plumbers, and we were talking about there were some professional people. They were saying that listen, no one would never think that. One girl, I was a female, and she said that she was a plumber. She shocked everyone, and she said she would never think that she would be able to sustain a family on her own, but from her being able to be a plumber, she can do that. And she said she was not the average grade student. So by me saying that those are areas that people that we do need younger folks, or we do need to have open. And these are not your 3.1s and 1s. That is my point. I just leave it there. So we have to find a way how we can also funnel them in if they don't have an IEP. So we're saying that the IEP, the mandates for them to come in. So that's my point. I'll leave it there.
Can I ask a question there? Do we have a report or data that shows how many, because understanding that this is what you're reporting, that the average student has a 3.3 or 3.1. That's not what the requirement is.
No.
So is there a way, or is there data showing that you have students who have applied that have the 2.0, the 2.5, that have been accepted and gone on to get certifications, those lower performing students, that will show this isn't, we're not saying no that you can't come. We're not saying no that you don't fit the model student, because they are students who do, as they say, have those lower grade performing grades, but still may fit into some of these career paths.
And you're gonna see them when you take a tour. You'll know. Okay? You'll get an idea of what our demographic is, what our population consists of, and I think it'll change maybe some of this conversation.
Could you put it on a curve and show me, your GPAs of your people? Show me on a curve.
In terms of our
Show
current
them
students.
what their GPAs are. Here's your X and Y axis. Show the ones, how many you have at, 3.8 and so on. Show me on a curve.
Okay.
So we can see what the demographic is.
Who those students are who have the 2.0, 2.5, 3.0.
Exactly.
How many of the 215 students
Yeah.
actually have 3.0, 2.5, 2.0, whatever the case may be, if you have that data.
Okay,
And
that's,
and Dr. LaVecchio, I also want to say, and I know, and what this board is presenting to you this morning is, you know, it's an awareness. And you may be already aware of this, but now you have people who are bringing this awareness to you. And it could also be a challenge, another challenge. That's what life is about these days. And I know you're challenged in so many ways. You school leaders, you're challenged in so many ways, because I remember the profile of a high school graduate. And I know what they're asking for these schools to meet standards, and for these students to be career ready, college ready, life ready, everything ready. I know all of that. And it's a challenge, and you're looking for the best student. But you have a boatload of kids. You have everybody, because you're serving the public. So you have every student in that boat. And the state is looking for you to bring all of them up to a certain level. I understand the challenge. I've been there. I understand. But I just want you to know that we want the same thing for these students that you want, that the state is expecting us to provide. And we are here. I know I'm here as a support to do whatever I can to help. And I will certainly look forward. And if Dr. Hickson wants to communicate further, I'll be happy to work with him, because I've been there in the trenches. I've done this, recruited kids and got kids to ACE and celebrate with ACE and celebrate with these kids and their parents. I've been there, I've done this, and I know what can happen. You know, I'm talking to you right now, I'm thinking of this little kid who went over there for health science and left high school and went to Trident Tech and left Trident Tech and went to Loyola for nurse practitioner. And talking to her just a little while ago, she's 4 years from retiring from the U.S. Navy, whatever it is. You know, she's not fully enrolled, but you know, you're connected with it. I guess more like a sort of civilian life, I guess. I don't know, but anyway, she has reserves, yeah. Mainly reserve, yes, because she goes different places for 4 years. After 4 years, she's transferred to a new state. So she's into all of that. And she has 4 more years and she'll be done. So I know what ACE can provide. I know what ACE can provide. I know the jump start ACE gave my kids. They weren't even in first grade. But they got their jump start at ACE because they were at that daycare center. I know what ACE did to us as a family, because my husband taught culinary arts over there at ACE. So I have fond memories of ACE. And now that I've been assigned to this board for a little while, I just want to do what I can, Dr. LeVecchio, to see you continue to move ACE forward. And I think you're doing a great job moving ACE forward, and we're just bringing some hiccups, some things that we need to take a serious look at and improve on.
I have one final question before we move to lunch, and you don't even have to answer it now. We can answer it at the next board meeting, because I know we got lunch waiting. The students, the 1/3 and 2/3 representation, right? When the districts are expected to pay per student for one that's enrolled.
Now, the way it stands now, we pay is 1/3 of the operational costs of running ACE. And so Jasper's 1/3 of the operational cost running ACE. Beaufort is 2/3 of the operational cost of running ACE.
So it's not a per pupil. Gotcha.
It's not a pupil, of course.
Okay, that's it.
Well, so the agenda says now we are supposed to have a tour of the facilities, then followed by lunch. Do you want to do that? You want to swap that
The kids are outside waiting.
around?
Y'all can't have lunch.
I'm sorry, sorry.
Enjoy for me.
Sorry.
Have my share.
We can have a virtual, we'll show you pictures.
I don't wanna do that. Eat some for me, MJ.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, guys.
All right, thank you very much for coming.
All right, have fun.
All
Take
right.
care.
So,
You need to close,
you want to,
adjourn?
yeah, well, according to your agenda, we don't adjourn until after we've done the tour of the facilities and had the lunch.
Yeah, can I ask a question? Can we get out to it later?
Of course, and you can get your lunch later too.
Okay, okay.
Awesome.
That sounds good to me. How about you, Ms. Hazel?
Well, yeah, technically, we should have a motion to change the agenda to have the lunch first and then the tour. So do I have a motion to do that?
I'll make a motion at this time that we change the
Okay.
agenda to have lunch, to have the tour first and then do lunch.
Second. In discussion? All in favor? Aye. Aye. We're good to go.
All right, guys, take care.
Take care.
Thank you.
All right, bye. Enjoy yourself. All right.
When, so I gotta think when the two new CTE buildings will be ready, probably the 2008,